It's now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. We begin here at home, of course, where in what seemed like setting up Governors Alex Otti of Abia State and Peter Mba of Enugu State, the Minister of Works, Senator Dave Umahi, has said all the 5 Southeast governors were already supporting President Bola Tinubu ahead of the 2027 elections in spite of their political affiliations. According to a release issued yesterday by presidential spokesperson Bayo Onanuga, the minister made the statements in a feature interview for an upcoming State House documentary marking President Tinubu's second year in office. Umahi, who called on opposition figures in the zone like Peter Obi to join the train and back the president, disclosed that a section of the Lagos-Calabar coastal highway was nearing completion and users would have to pay a toll effective December 2025. Umahi said, and I quote, "All the governors in the southeast, regardless of party affiliation, are working with the president," end of quote. Now, according to Umahi, the Southeast is witnessing a new wave of federal attention and infrastructure development under President Tinubu. Well, Dave Umahi's statement comes after Minister of Information and National Orientation Mohammed Idris yesterday said that although President Bola Tinubu's reforms initially triggered hardship, they had started yielding measurable outcomes. Idris insisted that the renewed hope agenda, Tinubu's signature program, was laying the foundation for Nigeria's economic renaissance through bold reforms, strategic investments, and inclusive policy innovations. Idris stated that the Tinubu administration policy direction had repositioned Nigeria for significant economic reforms, which were yielding visible results across critical sectors. He explained that the economic reset began on the first day of the inauguration of the Tinubu administration with the removal of the fuel subsidy and the unification of the exchange rates, describing the move as the bedrock of the nation's economic transition or renaissance. Now to issues around electricity. Minister of Power Chief Adebayo Adelabu has taken a swipe at electricity distribution companies, DISCOs, operating in the country, maintaining that they have not only disappointed Nigerians, but that they have become the weakest link in the power supply value chain. Adelabu also decried the continued low remittances from the power distributors, especially the DISCOs from the northern part of Nigeria, revealing that they only paid 30% of the expected revenues last year. Adelabu, who spoke in Ikotekpene, Akwa Ibom State, at a 2-day retreat organized by the Senate Committee on Power, explained that with a monthly subsidy shortfall of 200 billion naira, maintaining the current tariffs was unsustainable and was constituting a strain on public funds. Speaking on the issue of chronic underinvestment in distribution infrastructure, persistent crisis threatening to derail progress in the power sector, Adelabu stated that this had continued to cripple service delivery nationwide in spite of ongoing reforms in the electricity sector. And finally, the chairman of the Aliko Dangote Foundation, ADF, and president, chief executive of Dangote Industries Limited, that is Alhaji Aliko Dangote, has been named in the inaugural 2025 Time 100 philanthropy list. Published by Time magazine on Tuesday, it featured Aliko Dangote, whose foundation spends an average of $35 million a year on programs across Africa, alongside other global figures in charitable work such as Michael Bloomberg, Oprah Winfrey, Warren Buffett, and Melinda Gates, all of whom are recognized as titans. Time highlighted Dangote's remarkable rise to wealth, having built a fortune of $23.9 billion through ventures in cement, agriculture, and oil refining in Nigeria. However, it said his philanthropic efforts are equally noteworthy. So congratulations to Alhaji Aliko Dangote. He continues to do us proud. Every day proves that he truly is an ambassador for Nigeria.
I mean, these are one of our diamonds, a man that believes so much in Nigeria and believes so much in Africa and believes so much in the world. So congratulations. All this charitable venture are being noticed and is doing a lot in that field. But real quickly, let's come to the economy, and I'm going to merge many stories together. The minister is saying a lot has been done. Yeah, the government will claim a lot has been done, but let's cut through the chase. He said refinery has been fixed. Is it the same Warri refinery we had a skirmish over, and the Port Harcourt refinery that we revealed was a blending plant? And finally, now, what's the level of production? Vimbai, do you know that as of today, we're expending a lot of dollars to import fuel, despite the fact that the government claims this refinery is working, and we spent over billions of dollars on those refineries in the first place? Secondly, he talked about NEL Fund. Yes, student loans was a good one. We welcome the initiative. But what is happening? Recently, ICPC said there was a cry of discrepancies, as it were. The Minister of Education has come out to say nothing of such happened. We want an independent investigation into what is happening in NEL Fund. He talked about that, in fact, inflation is going down. Do you know how much a pint of Gary is now in the market? About 4,000. And that's the way things are surging. So yes, you might have had reduction in inflation in some places, in some areas, maybe price of bag of rice and coming down, but things are still very tough. Look at the coastal road they are talking about. All of the problems we complained about leading up to the coastal road has not been fixed today. The properties of people damaged, not all compensation have been paid to date. You still have a lot of problem. Even how was the contract awarded in the first place? What was the bidding process? What was the transparency level and all of that? Those are still many niggling questions you're asking. Insecurity in the country. Yes, the government has done some work as regards insecurity, but Mati, we're talking about Mati yesterday, it's about to be taken down by these bandits and these terrorists, these people that I really strongly repudiate and abhor because they are hurting our very precious soldiers. What about the state of play of the economy? We're celebrating recently that, we had paid out some of our loans and all of that, yes, the IMF and all of that, but let's not forget, how much have we borrowed also in recent times? We are celebrating the removal of subsidy, yes, but part of the thing they told us when subsidy was gone was the fact that, we're going to be producing locally and all of that. Today, we are still importing a lot of fuel. We are still expending our forex. Do you know most of the pressure on the forex today is based on that we are spending on importation? Do you know that even the NNPC still imported at some point in January? So we are having all of this going on, and we are saying, yes, let's juxtapose it with what is happening. Then, yes, some things have been done, but more needs to be done. Look at the electricity tariff. After return to Band A and increasing the tariff, what has happened? Band A doesn't still have effective power supply across board. And now you're saying you want to increase the tariff again because it's impacting on the government funds. How are we going to be able to navigate all of this? There's been a lot of pressure on the Nigerian people. Inflation still keeps surging. Do you know the effect on businesses when you have 27.5% interest rates? That means when you go to borrow at the bank, it's a high sum at which you borrow, because when the bank add all of the charges, is going to about 30%. Only recently, Budget did a release that over 6.9 trillion was padded or added to the budget. Schools like Oji River and the likes, over 11,000 projects. We've not had any cohesive response as regards the budgetary system. We want Nigeria to work. We love Nigeria, but we also have a right to ask questions. So President Tinubu, kudos to you on your second year anniversary. When you do well, we'll talk about it. But when you don't do well, we'll talk about it.
Okay, I do not want to waste additional valuable saliva on what the Minister of Information, Minister Mohammed Idris, said. He's doing his job. He's Minister of Information. He will naturally say that the government is doing very well. And this is in the context of the midterm second-year celebration of the Tinubu administration. Whatever he says is for other commentators to say whether they agree or disagree. But he's doing his job, and he's doing it very well. I don't want to argue with whatever details he has said. That's what he is expected to say, and he has said what he's expected to say. Let's go quickly to Alhaji Aliko Dangote, making the time 100 on the list of people who are distinguished in terms of philanthropy. Now, the Time 100 list was created 21 years ago. And what that list does is to recognize people who have distinguished themselves in different fields of human endeavor. And Time magazine, of course, is a very famous, distinguished, legendary publication. And Alhaji Aliko Dangote making that list, and I hope he's going to be at a ceremony this weekend where the official presentation will be made. I think it's a very important thing to underline. He's been honored for giving back to Africa. What it means is that this richest man in Africa, $24.3 billion, I think, now being honored internationally also shows that this is not just about business. He owns the largest single train refinery in the world. He is into commerce, agriculture, education, cement refining, oil refining. But in spite of all this, he's been recognized as somebody who gives back. Philanthropy. The other day, I was quoting one American figure who said, look, the whole purpose of wealth is for you to give back to society. And I think Alhaji Aliko Dangote represents that effectively, both through the Aliko Dangote Foundation, which he established, which this year alone has a budget of over $1 billion to give back to society, not just in Nigeria, but also in other countries where he's actively engaged. And this time, international recognition coming on the back of the recognition in Qatar. The only other Nigerian, apart from Abayomi Ogulesi, who shook the hands of President Trump in the during the visit of the U.S. president to the Middle East, again shows that, look, when you do well, you will be recognized. And I think that this should be an inspiring example for other Nigerian multi-billionaires. We have other ones amongst them who are also giving back to society. But it's about the scale. You have Femi Otedola, you have Tony Elumelu, you know, giving back also to society. But they can do more by following the example of Aliko Dangote, who has been recognized even globally for his efforts. So what is the purpose of business? The purpose of business, we're being told, is to give back to society. That's that about Aliko Dangote. The third issue is Minister Adelabu saying that discos are the weakest link. No, he's talking nonsense. I disagree with him. Look, the problem is with the transmission company of Nigeria. When transmission has a problem, what are the off-takers, the discos, what are they supposed to do? The other issue is that these discos, they are even under the control of the federal government of Nigeria. AMCON is in charge of about 8 of them, controlled by AMCON and the Bureau for Public Enterprises. So these discos, they have even failed because they have issues in terms of access to investment, in terms of access to other opportunities. No bank wants to lend money to them, and so they cannot function. Even if the transmission company says, we have generated the electricity, the off-takers are already hobbled, and it's government that owns 40% in these discos, distribution companies. It's like you say, oh, okay, government is not supplying water, and then they blame you in your house for the problem of water reticulation. So there is some kind of, disjunction there, some kind of misrepresentation there. The discos have always insisted that they need help. As you speak, even Ikeja Disco and one other disco, is it Lagos Disco or whatever, they are trying to even leave the business and sell their assets. They are looking for buyers. So the discos themselves have their own issues, and they've been on this program again and again to say that, look, we are not the problem. The problem is with the commitment of the Nigerian government to, energy sector delivery. And we have also had scholars on this program who have said Nigeria has to take a second look at the transmission system. If you cannot handle it, let us get outsiders. I know Manitoba, I was in government at the time of Manitoba hydroelectric. Well, things went under the water. I don't want to go into those details. It's not everything you see in the forest that you come out to come and talk about. But if you cannot handle it, can we get experts who can handle the transmission end and then address also the issues at the distribution level? So these are the issues here. You have the GENCOs, they will generate transmission. We have one national grid. One of the things we have said is that, can we decentralize the national grid? So there are more issues there than what Minister Adelabu was saying. And it should just be sincere with Nigerians.
Oh, very well said. Honestly, if we were to begin to unpack the power sector, I think it's a thesis in itself, a doctorate thesis at that, because there are so many moving pieces. But I'd like to focus on the statements by the Minister of Works, Senator Dave Umahi, around the Southeast rallying behind President Tinubu. And I think it's very important for us to continue to remind ourselves that we are in the season of governance. If we fall into the trap of discussing politics, politicking, campaigning, how people are aligning behind a candidate for the next 2 years, the nation can't move forward. So however, one of the things that's sticking out to me is this politicization of infrastructure, which is not new. Now, if you're saying that there's a federal presence and it's because of the current sitting president, that's why these areas, the Southeast, are enjoying various projects and so forth, then that is something that is to be faulted. In the past, we've also seen politicization of infrastructure under President Buhari when we saw that the governors insisted that they wanted to maintain federal roads by themselves and they paid for it, they were not refunded. There was so much controversy around that issue. And you ask yourself, how is it in a federal system? We claim to be a federation, and we claim to be aspiring towards true federalism, but governors are unable to oversee the roads in their states that will contribute to their own IGR, that will contribute to investment, that will contribute to ease of doing business, that will contribute to the welfare of their people. So this idea of saying that infrastructure development needs to be connected to the center is a faulty idea. Because you don't hear the governor of California saying, I need to connect to Washington, D.C. You don't hear the governor of Texas saying, I have to connect to the... No. We have to respect that. And maybe it is time to take a real look at allowing states to be able to oversee their own infrastructure projects, of course, with support and oversight from the federal. But I think there's something there, because we cannot continue in this cycle where we say that, okay, because a certain individual is in power, then, okay, certain groups won't be marginalized or they'll get attention. No, the nation should move forward. And we need to focus on governance in this moment. Now, still looking at governance, yes, there may have been a number of positive developments, but however, in economics, there's a reason why they separate the macro from the micro, the big from the small, the impact on big business, on industry, from the impact on you and I on our pockets. Now, recently we saw what was reported as a waning in inflation. I read a very interesting article from Biswak Rwani where he was breaking it down, and he said when he looked at the breakdown of these numbers, it was curious to him because for some reason, the states which are food producing states had higher inflation than those states that are food consuming. So you had Benue State with a higher inflation rate than a state like Ebonyi, for example. So now ask yourself, how are these figures coming together and what are the real challenges? He also said we have to be careful when we're dissecting some of this data because there are other issues at play which are not represented by overall monetary policy. There were rumors that circulated that there was some poisoned rice in circulation, and this is what led to a decrease in rice price. There was Ebola, tomato Ebola. Now we're looking at flooding. So there's several issues, bigger than macro issues. And we ask ourselves that, yes, as we celebrate some macro wins, what are we doing to support some of these some of the micro gains? Some of the micro losses and some of the micro impact on our pockets. Now, last but not least, to connect this with the interest rate that has been held by the Central Bank of Nigeria and the statement that, well, the economy is stable. But I ask ourselves, for how long? Two major issues we're still not addressing. The fluctuation in oil price and what it's going to do to our national budget. And number two, the fact that the Donald Trump administration is proposing a 5% excise tax on diaspora remittances. And of course, we know that diaspora remittances are one of our biggest earners, if not our second largest earners of foreign currency after oil. So you have our two largest forex earners currently threatened by global trends. So it's a difficult time for us to say, yes, the signaling, we must say we're stable so that investors can come and take a look at our economy. However, we also have to be pragmatic and ensure that this is bigger than political rhetoric and that we face governance issues and we do not allow ourselves to be distracted by all this politicking that's happening on the sidelines.